your crux, right? Which is your biggest weakness? The chin to throat or the pelvic tilt? If you can do chin to throat easily, then you're going to concentrate, and you have back pain, you're probably going to concentrate on pelvic tilts. If you have neck pain, you may have decent control of your pelvis, and we put that in place as best we can and work on the chin to throats, slowly progressing the strength of both of them as we work. Okay? Looks a little bit like this. I'm going to grab my ball and put my legs up. Folks at home who have knee issues or really, really bad back issues, you might also use an elevated surface, a chair, a stool, a ball like I'm going to use. Folks at home who are a little more capable, you can put your feet flat on the floor like Tiffany's going to demonstrate. And while I'm doing my thing, Tiffany's going to go through a series of chin to throat and pelvic tilt, starting at a very simple level of difficulty, progressing to a more, shall we say, athletic level of difficulty. And you're going to see that as she progresses, she maintains the precision of her base very well throughout the process, because she's been doing this stuff for years and has it very well ingrained. If you are of a more athletic sense and want to follow Tiffany into some of the more difficult exercises, beware of the base precision, right? Don't do movements that are beyond your ability to control chin to throat and pelvic tilt. And that goes from this pelvic tilt exercise all the way up through blocking in football. So here we go. Too much talking, not enough walking. All right. So as always, you guys are welcome to chime in with Matt on chat and ask questions. You're also welcome, as I always say, into the Zoom. Come on into the Zoom and get some real coaching, right? Face-to-face relationships are required for real in-depth coaching. And Zoom is not a perfect scenario, but it is a very personalized space where we can get to know you and your needs better. And in the process, help out a few folks at home who are dealing with similar realities. You notice I'm paying attention to my pelvic tilt here. My breath is attached to the motion. Inhaling when I release. Exhaling when I bring the movement. Now remember, if you're talking, you're exhaling to some degree. If you're talking, you're not inhaling, unless you have substantial ventriloquistic skills. Okay, I've done a few pelvic tilts there. I'm going to hold it in place. Put my attention to chin to throat. Notice my chin comes straight down. No lifting of the head. There's no lift tuck, right? It's just head stays heavy. Exhale breath. Chin tucks in. Release. Inhale breath. Exert. Exhale breath. Inhale. Exhale. You get the picture. What's our breathing count out there, everybody? Our breathing count is 3-6. 3 counts of inhale for 6 counts of exhale. And an official count for those of you just starting out is 1 second. So it's a 3-second inhale and a 6-second exhale. And then if you want to take your breathing further, we've got many other exercises we can do for that. First thing we do is extend how long each count is. Right. You can have one count be 10 seconds if you're really good at it. Neck's feeling pretty good today, right? Sometimes I come in, it's really crackly. There's some pinching going on up there. Feels pretty good today. So I'm just going to go right into some head lifts. Not going to mess around. Make up for some of my talking time. Now, I really hope some of you are trying this at home. I hope you have some feedback. Right? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Does it feel crooked? Does it feel great? Let's talk. Really towing that head up. We're not lifting the head with the chin leading. We're lifting the head with the nose leading toward the chest. Right, I'm going to go silent for a little bit here and finish some reps. And Tiffany's going to come in and she's just going to add in some commentary connected to what she's doing for us, which I can't even see from here. On your own cue, Tiff, take it away.
Alright, Mark. I'm doing some head lifts as well. I'm doing just what Mark was saying. I'm just taking note of, I want to make sure I set that chin to throat and I can control it before lifting and lead with my nose. And when I'm up here, I feel a big stretch in the back of my neck, feel the front of my neck contracting. And the hardest part is the transition. So I'm always kind of resetting if I need to. So reset the bottom, chin to throat, pelvic tilt, make sure it's on. And then lift. Keeping those on. And slowly control the lowering. That is the hardest part for me, is not losing the chin to throat as you hit the ground. The stretch in the back of the neck almost feels like, it doesn't feel like your average stretch. Would you say, Mark? It feels more like it's really hard. It's a contraction in its own.
And what's really interesting about that is that different people are going to feel it differently. Depending on where your largest tension spot is in your back. For instance, when I do chin to throats, I most often feel it right in my mid-thoracics here. I get a little bit of stretch and some movement and some crunching in the neck. But when I get to that end range of motion, the pull really is way down here for me. And I've witnessed it where it goes all the way down to the low back for some people. Right? So let's talk on that for a minute. If you're doing chin to throat and you're feeling it in your low back, make sure you have your pelvic tilt on. Because oftentimes we get so lost in the process of trying to create chin to throat and head lift that we actually lose our lumbar control and we start arching our back. So if you're doing a bunch of chin to throats and you notice that your back isn't flat, take a minute, take a breath, reset that, and start over again. All right. So let's now wander off. We're going to stay on our neck and we're going to go to our side neck stretch. Two things we do in almost every class. Unless we're doing something else different for the neck, we almost always do these two because they're so basic and they control. Doing them demands so much from the base, from someone that's new, that it's really a good starting point, right? Because you want to now put your pelvic tilt on, put your chin and throat on, and we're going to reach over and apply a stretch to the neck without losing pelvic tilt or chin to throat. sliding the head. See my head slide on the mat, right? It's not rolling. And Tiffany, if you'd like to show them a different angle on side neck stretch, feel free. Either, changing your mat, sitting up, standing up, right? What we want to make clear is that there is a one right way to do things, but that one right way can be applied to many settings. I've been yakking so straight through this, I haven't even heard from Matt today. How you doing out there, Matt?
I'm doing great. And it's funny you asked. I just got a question for you, and it's by Painting Home. Their question is, will improving my posture gain me an inch on height? I'm a 5'5" male at 16 years old, 115 pounds.
It depends on how bad your posture is to start there, buddy. Right? If you are rounded forward and your head falls forward, if your ears fall forward of your shoulders, it is likely you'll gain some height from keeping your posture more erect. It doesn't make you taller, it makes you present at more of your full height. That said, at 16 years old, you're probably going to grow some anyway. And it's really important during the growth cycle that you're in that you learn the mechanics of staying erect. Right now, your body is learning patterns. And if you are on gadgets all the time in front of you, or even reading straight up old printed books, and you're rounded forward, your body is learning and hardening into that rounded forward position. You need to do the kind of work that we present here in this class to counterbalance those domesticating influences, right? We are domesticated animals. Working on a screen is a domesticated activity, right? It is a domesticated pattern of being rounded forward that comes from all of those domesticated activities that pull us forward. We have to work in a purposeful manner to create an equal amount of influence to staying erect and straight and tall, because that is where the body works most efficiently as a machine. So thank you for the question. Didn't catch that full name. Congratulations on starting young. It'll pay benefits for many years. For those of you that aren't starting young, you get to earn back lost capability. So join us, please. I believe I have to stretch the other side of my neck now, and then we'll be out of the neck portion, the foundation, the neck portion. We should do another foundation exercise, though. And we'll do some side double leg raise today. So yeah, folks who are out there, if you come into the Zoom, we keep this class flexible enough that I can cue off of you and teach you things that are directly relevant to you. So if I sound like a broken record about coming in the Zoom, well, come in the Zoom, come in the Zoom, come in the Zoom, come in the Zoom, come in the Zoom. If I'm going to sound like a broken record, I might as well be a broken record. All right. So this next exercise we're going to go to, I'm doing the limited version of it compared to Tiffany. It's called side double leg raise. And it's an exercise for your obliques and your abdominal wall, right? But let's strip it back, right? This exercise is for this muscular. These muscles are getting stronger directly from lifting your legs. You're pulling your hip toward your ribs. using the muscles of the abdominal wall. Okay, it's not a big hip exercise, right? If you bend or you flex or you deflect, you get different hip muscles involved. We're saying ramrod straight. Let me tell you, the first benefit that comes from this exercise is stability, right? We don't let you lift your legs unless you can stably hold your chin to throat and your pelvic tilt with your feet straight, right? If you're like this and you're bent and you can't get your body straight, right? A lot of people, you're going to pull your legs back to be straight and it's going to make your back arch because your hip flexors are so tight, right? It's those tight hip flexors that keep your back arched like that. So the first part of this exercise for you is to set your pelvic tilt and elongate into the position without losing pelvic tilt. So if you're just laying there and your pelvic tilt, extend, release. Pelvic tilt, extend, release. Pelvic tilt, extend. More pelvic tilt, extend, more pelvic tilt, right? That might be where you're at right now, and that's cool. It's cool. Where you're at is where you need to be. Don't try to be where we're at necessarily. Explore and find where you're at. Okay. I am going to need some pillows here. I was going to do without pillows, but my neck's already jacking up on me. Hey, look what we have here, handy dandy pillows. Okay, I have big broad shoulders, right? There's a lot of distance between my ear and the outside of my shoulder. I use 2 pillows. Somebody who's a little smaller will need less, will have to cover less space. The idea is you want to keep your spine nice and straight on a line this way. I feel I'm probably a little, that feels all right. Feedback is always welcome. And in advance, I already know I suck, so you can save that one. Pelvic tilt. Extend the heels. Chin to throat. Lift the legs. That's about where I'm at. You guys will be watching this and see that Tiff has a little bit higher leg lift than I do. This has a big brother exercise to it called side ups, which we're not going to do today, but you stick around and become a regular. We will get to it eventually. Pelvic tilt, lift. Right? Now watch. I can do 20 or 30 of those lifts real easy. But those lifts aren't doing anything for you. It's getting into this place, getting the balance, holding that pelvic tilt, and then lifting. Remember, the first thing that gets trained in any of our foundation exercise is pelvic tilt and chin to throat, right? There's 5 exercises in our foundation 5. All of them require, they start with pelvic tilt and chin to throat, and then this is one of those 5 exercises. It starts with pelvic tilt and chin to throat. It doesn't become double leg lift until you have pelvic tilt and chin to throat. If I haven't beaten that horse hard enough for you today, God damn it, it's all about pelvic tilt and chin to throat. The foundation series isn't about abs, it isn't about doing big exercises, it's about hardening pelvic tilt and chin to throat. The exercises are a secondary overload, putting stress on pelvic tilt and chin to throat. We must become stronger and overcome that stress to work against it. And that's how you retrain your core. Your reflexive core. You got to drill it into the hindbrain with lots of reps and sustained holds. just a couple months ago, I was a lot better at these. I was getting up 4 or 5 inches, but I haven't done them for a while. Alright. I'm going to roll over and hit the other side. Tiff, why don't you coach us on side 2?
Alright, let's switch up. So, got my pillow. Keep my head aligned with my spine. And now we'll make sure that I'm in a straight line. The crown of my head, and my shoulder, middle of my shoulder, my hip, my knees, and my ankles, right? So if you see too much of your feet when you're doing this, you're probably piking. If you feel some low back pain, you might be arching. That might mean your ankles are behind you. So check yourself out. I always like to help people find the wobbly spot, so I have them roll around a little bit, roll forward. Right now, my hip is not stacked on top of the other. I'm resting on my thigh. Then I can roll backwards and I notice I'm resting on my butt cheek. So I try to find right in between that and that wobbly spot. So I get familiar with that. Set my base, chin to throat, pelvic tilt. Kick my heels out so my feet are flexed. And I'm straight as an arrow here. Put your hand on the ground for support. You can also put your hand on your waist, and that is a little more challenging. You can also feel your obliques working. And use the pelvic tilts to warm up. On and off. Keep that chin to throat on. Holding, balancing. Once you get the feel for it, lock that in. That stays on the whole time. And then exhale and lift and hold and balance. And slowly down. And I'm just trying to maintain that stability, just like Mark was saying. Every time you're shaking and wobbling, you're getting a little bit stronger.
Yeah, shaking and wobbling. That's it. If you're in a place and you kind of get a little bit of a static tremor, that's a good thing. That means you're right on that cusp. Your body's fighting to hold the position right, but the load is stressing its ability to hold it. And when you're at that wobbly spot, you're really maintaining, you're really building strength. All right, and then what do we want to do? We just finished some exercise. What do we do when we finish exercise? We do some erasers. Right. You guys can keep going and work a little bit more on that set if you want. If you're really feeling it. I'm just going to go and I'm going to do some leg rotations here. Right, butterflies, bicycles. Why do we do erasers? We do erasers because when we're doing exercises, when we're stretching or doing strength training exercises, we build up tensions in the body. And we want to let all those tensions go and let the hips be neutral and the back be neutral and the shoulders and neck all be neutral going into the next exercise. We don't want to take the distortions of our kinetics built in one exercise and drag them into the next. So we like to loosen up in between. And Matt, Mark to Matt, how would you like to coach us through some plank? Tiffany and I will directly follow your instructions through plank. Because yours
I'm actually doing something in the background right now.
Oh.
If you want to give me a few minutes, I should be able to do it.
All right, Matt, maybe we'll come back to that next time because we should move on, basically. Keep it moving. Tiffany's doing some cat-cows there. That's another eraser. Right, that's loosening and neutralizing the spine, getting it all mobile again from any tension spots you might have built up. And Tiff, we're going to do a little bit of our stretching series. So I'm going to be working my knee here at the table, right? My half crippled knee. And Tiff is going to just do stretches that a normal person would do. And coming off the floor doing foundation work, we might do child's pose. We might do some knee to chest. We might do some double knee to chest. We might pop up and do a lunge, maybe a little hamstring stretch. So Tiff, just kind of go through a little, 30-second hold kind of stretch routine while I'm doing my boring old knee here.
Okay.
Now, stretching for an eraser and holding 30 seconds or so is a good thing. It's a great neutralizer. If you're looking to gain mobility, that's when we apply the longer holds, right? We can hold 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes for those people who are truly disciplined with it. And that builds flexibility, right? A lot of people talk about stretching and how to stretch and what's the right way to stretch. There's no one right way to stretch. There's a right way to stretch given your intended purpose. And not everyone's purpose is always the same. Now I just said, I'm going to do my boring old knee exercise. Just last week somebody called in and asked about is there a way to do this where it's less boring? And my answer to them was boredom is in you. But you're right, situations aren't boring, right? Life is this exciting, full, vibrant thing full of possibilities if you engage it. Every moment you're in has some kind of brilliance in it if you choose to pull back and see that brilliance. Boredom is within an individual, and it's that individual's inability to find what does exist in the world for them. So I just used the term boring, but I did it kind of an offhanded way, a little bit of self-deprecation there. Because the process is slow. I do understand that people consider it boring, but I'm asking you to, literally take a deep breath and give it a try. Stick with it for long enough that it can make a difference, right? Even if you come in and just do a few neck exercises with us and then do some silent 7, right? That's more than you would have done on a day without. Right? It's breaking an old pattern. The hardest part of change is breaking the old pattern, not establishing the new pattern. Right? If you can break an old pattern, by default, you establish a new pattern. And then that's where you have the option of choice and the ability to intervene. When you've given up the old pattern, you get to choose the new pattern that goes in its place. My knee's been kind of rough shape for the past week or so. Been overworking it, kind of pushing it to its limit. I had to take a sort of a semi-day off where I didn't do a lot of physical activity over the weekend. That's always a little warning sign for me. Those of you that watch regularly and have a good sense of things will notice that my pull is not as long as it was 2 weeks ago. I used to be able to pull this through a little bit further, but the restrictions in the knee, given its current state of inflammation, just aren't allowing it. And that's okay. That's another thing with this class. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday. As you progress through your process, things are going to change, right? Some things are going to get better. You're going to have small injuries, small setbacks to work around them. We're here for that, right? In the Zoom, we are here for that. So Matt, I'm going to finish this set of pulls. And then I'm going to finish one more set of stretches. Then I'm going to do another set of pulls. So that's for you and Tiffany to kind of know the timing. That's about 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe. So if you've got anything from the audience, I've got some time to give an answer. Take a look at Tiff. Tiff's doing a nice figure 4 there. Tiff, try to elevate the hip toward your shoulder and roll it down toward the floor.
Which hip?
The far away hip, the right hip, I believe it is.
Rotate it upward?
No. Hike it upward toward your shoulder. Rotate it downward toward the floor. There you go. Folks out there, see how her waistline became a straight line when she did that? She engaged her pelvic tilt. Her pelvic tilt was great on the left side, but the right side was sort of slacking down a little bit. So I had her hike that hip up and torque more into the stretch, and you heard her response of oof, right?
Oh yeah. And deeper.
Everybody
I
benefits
was gonna
from
say a response to that.
Yeah.
So that board and comment is like very stretchy. I feel like once you know, you can like visualize the muscle and get to know your body more, it isn't as boring. Just like how you could just tell me to do that and I could increase the stretch. It's a little more exciting to get more familiar with your body, I'd say.
Right. And it's really just as simple as, like, when you do these stretches and you go into them, there's content in those stretches. There's like, how does it feel? Where does it feel? Is it spiky? Is it dull? Is it throbby? And when you go into it and put yourself wholly in that moment, there's no boredom. It's when you're thinking about your next cup of coffee or meeting your friends and half an hour later that it's boring. Because, this is a good one.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of information you can receive. And
for instance, a rock and roller might think the symphony boring, right? But they simply don't have the tools to appreciate it with. That's one from my personal experience.
Yeah.
I used to think the symphony, I had the good fortune in my life that some of my clients were conductors here in town at the, we're talking major symphonies and opera houses. And I had the good fortune of kind of steeping in that world for a while. When I started, I was a clueless nitwit. But by the end of it, I can go, somebody says classical music performance, sure, I'm down. And I will go and I will fully absorb in that moment and there won't be any boredom. All right. Enough of that. Saw Matt tweaking around with the video earlier, so I'm going to guess he's picked his exercise of the day. Is that correct, Matt?
That is correct, Mark.
All right. Well, let's transition over there and take a look at that.
All right.
Tiff, good job sticking with that routine. You see, it's ingrained for her. When she does things, she shakes it out. She does things to come out of that motion. All right, Matt, I'm ready.
All right. Sorry to cover up Tiffany for you there, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and play a video. This is a video that I watched a little bit before I met you to help me with my hands. I just remembered that. I just remembered it, and I think it's somewhat similar to some of the things that you told me to do, but I would be very curious to what you would have to say reviewing it, Mark. So I'm going to go ahead and play it.
All right, Matt. Let me pause that. So that was a really great review. They covered all the bases, right? So there were neuromuscular and strengthening movements involved. There were stretches involved. There were traction movements involved. And there were full range of exercise, full range of motion with low resistance, which is an eraser, right? So that all of the elements of a good program are in that video, right? What you don't get from them is nuance, and it tells you to do them for 30 seconds. Again, if you've got long-term chronic problems, you need a little more nuance. For instance, let's take the two stretches they showed you, the two simple stretches, right? The wrist flexor stretches, right? They just showed you la-ti-da-ti-da-ti-da, hold on 30 seconds, pretty music, and it's done, right? No, you got to get into that. You got to go into it and you got to breathe. 3-6 breath. Where do I feel it? Where can I move to get a little more leverage? Where's my tightest spot? Oh, this is my tightest spot. Okay, I'm going to concentrate that tightest spot for a few seconds, right? Nice stance, holding, pelvic tilt, chin to throat, right? Wrist and forearm pain are part and parcel with the chain all the way back up to the neck. So you don't want to do your wrist stretch like this, right? You want it nice and down. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my whole hand. Oh yeah, much more balanced pull up through my hand and arm. After I give a little extra stretch to those two tight fingers. And now it's really just transitioned out of my hand up into my forearm, right? I'm making these little subtle moves that create release in the tissues and let me go a little bit further and deeper. Okay, now I'm not feeling anything on my pinky line, so I want to get more on that pinky line, right? I'm even going to cross over. See, my hand position has changed, but I'm still stretching the flexors of these two fingers. So the answer essentially is yes, everything on there is good. It's a little oversimplified. It doesn't really get across the level of intention that you need to address the movements with. But they are all excellent movements. So that would be Matt's exercise of the day. How are we doing out there with the audience, Matt? We got any questions coming in? Anything like that?
Yes, we do, Mark. This is from Raven Magic. It's Magic with a K. I'm obese and I have a terrible Buffalo's hump / Dowager's hump, whatever you call it. Is there a way to fix this, and how long will it take me, and how should I fix it? I've been generally trying to maintain good posture in school, sitting my shoulders back and head straight, but I don't know if it's doing much.
So repeat that question for me verbatim, Matt, because it's a sensitive one and I don't want to foul.
Okay, so I'm 16, I'm obese, and I have a terrible buffalo hump / Dowager's hump, whatever you call it. Is there a way to fix this? And if so, how long will it take me, and how should I fix it?
Okay, there's two elements to this reality. We all have, as everyone does, I'm just going to move the camera rather than move Benny. We all have a skeleton, right? We're all in the bottom of this, a bag of bones, right? And you can see here that these vertebrae stick out a little bit more than the other vertebra. So there is naturally a hump or a curve when you look at someone, even when they have good posture, right? That's why when we talk about the posture, we talk about the ear hole being over the shoulder, right? And we're forgetting about that hump thing. Because as we do have bad posture and fall into it, that hump happens, right? So if you have this postural element going on, that's contributing to your hump. And yes, postural correction will help that, right? You can see it right here, live and in person. Little bit of curve right there. Oh, tag sticking out. Little bit of curve right there. And as I fall forward, and then I roll forward, right? There's your dowager / buffalo hump, right? Coming out of that, making that correction, it's less. So that process of doing that work and making those corrections is, if you're 16 years old, going to take you between 6 weeks and 6 months, depending on how frequently you do the work, how intensely you do the work, and how much of a curve is already created. How far fallen out of a straight line are you? You know, how much work do you have to do, and then how much work you do and how intensely you do it affects the time frame. All of that said, and not wanting to make false promises, sometimes folks who have weight issues store fat in that same area. So you really, I guess what I'm trying to say is focus on the bigger picture of your overall health and try to get the weight under control and develop a little bit of physicality, because that is my biggest concern in what you ask me, right? Yes, the postural stuff, no matter what your weight, can be countermeasured by doing the right work. You're coming to me basically expressing a concern over an aesthetic element, right? If you take care of the inner, if you find a deeper inner solution that lets you find a healthier place to be and gain control of the weight, the exercise and the work is just part of that process. And you get the physicality, the strength changes, the postural changes, along with that much larger benefit of regaining. It's always so sensitive to talk about these, about weight issues with people, because you never know where they come from or what's involved. And it's very hard to advise someone at a distance like this. But provided it's not a genetic or a metabolic issue and it's simply lifestyle, I really encourage you to use the motivation that comes from that wanting of aesthetic change to make the bigger change. And in the process of that bigger change, the physical work to fix your posture can easily be incorporated. So you're a young person. My heart goes out to you. Now is the time to make the change. And we all have that switch inside of us somewhere where we can make that change. As much as I can help you find it, I'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday doing that at no cost. Zoom is the place to be to get a little bit more in-depth coaching. To answer your question more directly, the physical work needed to change your posture is relevant to how long and how badly the posture are distorted and the amount of work you do to change it, usually 6 weeks to 6 months for someone as young as yourself. That said, good luck, and I hope to see you pop back in for more questions in the future. And with that, Matt, I am going to move on. We're going to do a little bit of legs. Looking at some time, trying to keep things tight. We are at 4:50. Tiff, I got to do some stuff for my knee that's very knee specific. If you could go through one set of easy lunges and one set of easy sit squats, and then a second set of a little bit more difficult example, that would be great. So folks of you out there with good strong legs, backs, and shoulders, follow Tiff along, and we'll let her in to comment on what she's doing every so often, because there's going to be some cueing involved there. And for those of you who can't do what Tiffany's doing, right, because I'm going to show you a quick example. She's going to be doing sit squats, where she goes really nice and deep and down, right? If you've got bad knees, a bad back, your hip hurts a little bit, you can't do that really well, go to your kitchen sink, throw your fingers over the edge of the sink, and just do what you can. Stand up straight so that your arms drop right at that edge of the sink, and just sit back. Notice how I'm sitting back and not just down and forward. My butt's going backwards, right? If you're doing nothing today, this is change. This is more than you did yesterday. And that is a starting place. I'm going to go over on the treadmill and do my knee stretch because I really, really feel the need for this knee stretch. Just looking for my box here.
Getting set up for lunges, making sure I have some kind of support on my side, some hands right here. We do something that you don't have to use a chair, something that will support you throughout your raising and lowering. I'm going to do the half lunge. I'm just going to go from the top halfway down and right back up. You can also use 2 chairs to support yourself. If you have some tight hips, just focus on squaring up your hips right now. My hips are not square. I'm going to bring them together. So I bring the back hip forward. And you can also check out your waistline. What does it look like? Does one heighten that more than the other? Try to think about sitting that down, leveling them out. If that's really difficult for you, just do that a few times. Just cause some hip rotations. To get the feel for it, keeping that pelvic tilt on, chin to throat, shoulders are stacked on top of the hips. Do that a few times to warm up. That can be an exercise all in itself. Getting familiar with those muscles, all the capabilities of your pelvis and hips, doing many things. Once you feel like you got a feel for it, you walk in, use your support. I'm just going to do some half lunges here. Making sure my weight is evenly distributed through the front leg and the back leg, pressing through the ball of the foot.
And what's really interesting about the process here at Dynamic Balance is that she was just going over all those points. I'm doing a completely different exercise, but all of those cues she was giving you guys for that lunge applied very directly to what I'm doing here. And I was able to use those cues to make my own adjustments because they are foundational adjustments. And the foundation is always wanting to do the same thing, or we are always wanting the foundation to be doing the same thing. So when she's cueing you for that lunge and talking about hips and ball of the foot and legs straight, those apply to everything.
Once you know them, you can pretty much apply to all the exercises you do.
So I just got my knee stretch done, and I'm going to come over and join you guys some of this. I'm definitely doing halfsies today. The knee has been barking. Right? Some of us are stuck with living with pain for the rest of our lives, right? We do have the ability to mitigate that pain. How much is it going to be? When is it going to bother us? How much is it going to limit our capacity, right? If we do nothing, the answer is always much more than if you do the right things to keep yourself strong, aligned, and able to tolerate life's bruises, if you will. Like right now, I'm having to make assessments of, is this a good thing for my knee right now, or is it just a little bit too much? Came out of that, it was talking to me. Mostly heavy muscle spasm right above the knee.
So I started on some modified sit squats, just going halfway down, and focusing on my skinny base, balls of the feet, tilt and throat, and getting used to the motion. So when my hands come up, everything starts to bend and hold. Everything moves at the same pace. Trying to get that coordination down. Only been about halfway. Feeling myself shift to my heels and come back up. I'm keeping the tilt on even as I come back up. A lot of us lose it. I want to just give it up when we're back to standing position, but that is a challenge in itself.
And I'm going to be joining here and doing a hanging sit squat, where I hold or I let my butt drop back. It really gives me a nice low back stretch. Then I use my thigh strength to come out of it. Matt, what's going on out there in the world for you? Not had enough Matt in our day today.
Well, there's a question in the chat, and it is by Organic Quarter 7512. Can running help improve posture, and has anyone done any research on this topic?
Any work that influences you to stay upright will help your posture. Any work that you cannot do while maintaining an upright posture will make your posture worse. So if your head is falling forward and you've got a big old arch in your back, or you lean to one side and you go take up running, all of those patterns that you have are going to get harder and more intense, right? Same thing with weightlifting or any other activity. If your postural control isn't sufficient to maintain you while doing that activity, it will make your posture worse, right? From golf to basketball to weightlifting to running. You've got to have that control so that when you run, you can stay tall, right? Because there's a million different running styles and posture. No two people run exactly the same, for the record. So the answer to your question is, if you take your flaws into the environment of running, you will compound your flaws. If you take the time to correct the postural flaws and take them into running, and you have an awareness, they will get stronger as you run. So, no magic bullets, folks. You got to do the foundation work. The foundation work is where postural changes take place and stick. Anything else is just trying to drive around the quote-unquote boredom. Think of your profession. What do you do for work, right? Whether you put pieces of paper under a stamp all day long, or you're a highfalutin lawyer or a doctor. You know, you have witnessed people in your profession who try to do that work without owning the foundations of that work. They fail. Or they're pathetic, right? You gotta do the foundations. You gotta have that basic wiring of how to move properly in bigger situations. The bigger situation doesn't suddenly correct things, it complicates things. If you've got a flaw when you try to lie down straight on a mat, that flaw is going to be manifesting 100 times stronger if you're trying to take a martial arts class. Does that make any sense, Matt? Am I getting through my point there?
You made perfect sense, Mark.
I don't want to turn people away and I don't want to seem like a smart ass, but there's a lot of questions that come in of how can I get my goal without doing this work? And the answer is you really can't. You might find somebody else who packages the work a little bit differently, but you're still going to have to do that work. Right? I'm not the only guy out there with this knowledge. I'm just one of the guys out there with 30 years of knowledge, one-on-one with people, teaching it every single day. Day after day, year after year. Right? And no, there really is no research on this stuff the way I think it should be, right? The nature of research is that you strip things down to isolate one variable. The reality you're dealing with when you're recovering from trauma or living with chronic pain is that you need to synergize 100 variables, right? It's the synergy of many different things that you do that lead to success. The isolation of one variable, which we do in science, gives you hard, fast evidence of how much that one thing does all by itself, right? So let's take doing an exercise. Pelvic tilt and chin to throat. I give pelvic tilt and chin to throat to someone who has a great attitude and says, oh my God, I want to get better. I've got to get better. I love this exercise. I'm going to do this. I'm spinning around like a damn fool over here. I love this exercise. I'm going to do this exercise. I'm doing it 3 times a day. I'm doing it perfectly. I listen to the video whenever I do it. Oh my God, this is great. I'm feeling better, right? Compared to someone who has that same experience and says, this is bullshit. I'm too tired. It's not going to work. I did it Tuesday. I did it Saturday. Yeah, it doesn't work. I tried it, right? There's a different variable there. There's a variable of motivation and intention, right? And that's just one layer, right? Then there's the how-dos. How do I personally connect with you, right? Some people take and love my instruction. Other people don't come back, how accurate, like pelvic tilt and chin to throat, can be done 1,000 different ways. Which way did the study use? How many reps did they make them do? How long did it last for? And guess what? They're still isolating one exercise. We're talking about 4, 5 exercises in a package to make a difference. With the proper intention, with the slowness, with the intention of retraining the hindbrain and not just getting buff, right? If you approach these exercises we're teaching you with a gym mentality, you will not be successful in your therapy with them. And you may even aggravate things. All right. Tiff's doing some standing leg curls there because I've babbled for so long. She ran out of the other things to do. She's doing a great exercise there. It's a knee lift, foot drag. You see the little foot drags I do sitting on the table? This is the granddaddy of that exercise. She pulls that knee nice and straight up in front of her. Leg falls straight down. the foot drags. That's the leg curl part of it right there. That's hamstring. And she lifts that foot up really nice and high, really squeezing that butt. Notice the pelvic tilt did not flinch, right? She kept her pelvic tilt through that whole cycle of her leg, right? I guarantee you, anyone out there who's not a practiced athlete cannot do this motion, right? Tiff, on the next one, try to drag your knee past the standing knee. Make it a little bit longer and still keep I want you to go until pelvic tilt breaks. Keep going. Pull, 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 and there goes pelvic tilt. That's when she needs to pick up, right? Just a little bit before. Now pick that heel up. Pick it up. Pelvic tilt, lift. Pelvic tilt, lift. Now bring the knee through. No loss of pelvic tilt, right? My challenge to anybody out there is I say you can't do it. If you want to prove me that you can do it, come in the Zoom and I will listen. But other than that, I don't think anybody out there's got the goods to bring it home. Like my girl Tiff. All right.
Yeah, let's talk about that tight hammy. I think that's like the breakthrough point right there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
Right. You find where things break down, you work on them, and you get breakthroughs. How's that for today's wisdom tidbit? All right. We're going to do a little upper body today, Tiff. What are we going to do? Upper body. Let's do you have any weight there at all?
Yeah, not too fast on way to go around.
Okay. we're going to do push-ups and pullovers. You can use your sofa with your shoulder on the arm of the sofa and head hanging off for your pullover. And push-ups you can just do right on the mat. And I've got the bench here to do my pullovers. Actually, I'll do them off the table just to keep it a little more in the vein of you too can do this at home.
I'm gonna grab my weight so I don't have to change my camera too much. So
All right. I'll start everybody off. Let's loosen up a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of chest stretch. Place the hand, get that elbow up, keep the shoulder down, rotate into the stretch.
Your chest stretch?
Yeah, get a little loose for it. Chest stretch, arm cross body, push-ups. This stretch, folks, we're planting the hand. You can do it anywhere, doorway, wall, pelvic tilt, chin to throat, feet at an angle. I'm rotating my whole body as if doing this. You'll notice I'm not going to let my hips out-rotate my body. Coming right here, and I rotate, and right here my shoulder stops. So that's where my hip stops. Now my hips are still creating power to rotate that way, but they're connecting that power all the way up to the shoulder. So from my hips, my bottom, locking my waist, I'm rotating into it, and the force comes up here into the pec. Keeping my nose neutral with my chest. I want to stretch my neck a little bit. I can turn my head into it as well. But intentionally, we're trying for just chest, so stay neutral. Come on to that, some swings. And erasers, gotta have the erasers. Arm swings, back and slaps.
Hi, everybody.
All right. Whew, arm across body, we promised. Standing. pulling that shoulder across the body. At the moment, I'm feeling a little compression, a little tweakiness in the shoulder. I got some bone spurs in there. Right? I want to not compress those acutely. Sometimes it's just a matter of repositioning, changing your grip a little. Pulling down and across. Slow and intentional. Remember, the first 30 seconds is going to be different than the second 30 seconds, if you're doing it right. This is not a static, stay in one place stretch. It looks static, but there's a small amount of movement as the muscles release. You take up that slack and keep that force transmitting through them. Arm swings, rapid slaps, then we're off onto our push-ups. I'm going to do my first set of push-ups here on the bar to warm up. Tiff, we'll see what she's going to give us for push-ups. I know her back's a little bit tweaky, so if you need to be conservative and just go for the knee push-ups, Tiff, that's cool by me. Right? It's never a good idea to try to show your best stuff on a bad day. Notice my knees are soft, my weight is on my forefoot, my pelvic tilt is engaged, and my chin to throat is in place. Now these are kind of wimpy push-ups, but I got some ratchet old ass shoulders that I need to be aware of. So I always do an easy set, get them warmed up, get them lubricated before I try something harder. Come on, just do 5 with us, even just 5. That's 5 you wouldn't have done otherwise, and it's the beginning of change. 5 today, 5 tomorrow, 5 of something else the next day that you didn't do in the previous weeks before, and you have started something new. You've broken an old habit and chosen intentionally on what to replace it with. And that is the essence of change. I'm going to keep going on this set. I'm just going to lower the bar down a little bit. Oh, Tiff pulled a fake on me and went to pullovers. I said you pulled a fake on me and went to pullovers.
No, I didn't need push-ups.
Oh, did you? Oh, she's just ahead of me. So she's doing a basic set of pullovers there, lying flat on the floor, right? Is that the most ideal position for pullovers? No. Is it better than not doing any pullovers? Yes. Right? She'll show on the next set where she can do them with the assistance of her sofa and get a much deeper drop. And in fact, if you want a little bit deeper drop, hold the ends of the dumbbells instead of just one end. And that'll let you drop about 4 inches lower, even in that position. Yeah. Now just touch the dumbbell to the floor and it's going to be a bigger stretch than it was before. Bend those elbows a little. Bend the elbows a little.
Oh boy.
There you go.
You,
See, that's just 4 inches and she's feeling the difference, right?
a little big difference here.
And I just dropped my bar and I'm going back to push-ups, and because I've changed the angle, they're now going to be a little harder because more of my lard ass is stationed over the shoulders. Hey Matt, what's the time check there, buddy?
On the downward part, you what there?
Hold up, downward part, what, Tiff?
I was just asking if when I'm all the way down here, do I stay here for a second? Like for a
Split,
second?
yeah, that's where you do your hold. That's where you do your 3 count hold.
Okay.
3 counts down, 3 counts hold, 3 counts out. And on that one, folks, you want to bend your elbows and pull your elbows together in a manner that your shoulders feel comfortable making that rotation. Matt, you were saying what time it was?
Mark, we have about 14 minutes left in the show.
Perfect. What you got going on out there in the interwebs, Matt?
Well, in our chat, I taught a video about carpal tunnel sparked a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah?
And people are talking about the best ways to stretch, and someone's actually submitted a video for our audience exercise today of another carpal tunnel.
Oh, interesting. Going deep on the carpal tunnel today. So, carpal tunnel, if you guys got wrist problems out there, right? When you do push-ups, that might be a problem, okay? You want to make sure you got your wrist. See how my wrists are aligned with my hand right here, right? This is what we call negative wrist. That's a lot of stress and tension on the wrist. This is what we call positive wrist. And in a push-up, you don't want to be doing that because you're going to slip right off, right? You want to get that wrist right behind the butt of the hand and let that compression distribute through all the bones of the wrist, right? Some folks, you might do well to have your dumbbells and hold your dumbbells, do a push-up off the dumbbells. You can use pads. Just start your push-up somewhere where there's no wrist stress, right? You might do a standing push-up with your fingertips, right? And that will slowly start to build some hand and wrist strength, right? Because for you, the secondary benefit is the chest and arms. The primary benefit is the hands and wrists that you're trying to make strong. I'm gonna go grab myself, I'll do a medicine ball pullover. Got a 9-pounder here, right? Again, give me some mercy on my bum shoulders, right?
Hey Mark, when I'm getting set up for this pullover on the couch,
Yeah.
where do I want my shoulder blades to be?
So your shoulder blades are gonna be right across the arm of the couch, and you're gonna be doing a nice pelvic tilt bridge, making a straight line from your knees to your shoulders. Pelvic tilt is in control, chin to throat, and then that weight will go back, and it's going to give her a little more range of motion. She can drop down below where the floor would be. And Tiff, this is where it's important to rotate your elbows in toward the middle and let them bend a little bit.
And do you keep your chin to throat on?
Yep, that neutral chin to throat. And I'm doing it right here on my table. Notice I let the nape of my neck rest at the edge of the table. It kind of keeps me pretty honest, just right out of the gate. Then I got my med ball, and I reach down, and I take a stretch. All right, for me, the hard part of this isn't the weight, it's the stretch and the compression of the shoulder, even with a light weight. Pelvic tilt on.
Yeah, that one has definitely a little more load to the neck. Reminds me of like headlift.
Yeah. You're what I would call free-forming it with the head and neck there, because your head and neck are out beyond the arm of the couch where you have support. So you've really got to own them. No beginner should be doing that. Beginners should be doing what I was doing, where the head is still supported
Right.
at the nape, right at that little bud on the back of the head. With that, Matt said he's got another wrist video for us. So we'll watch this, take what we can from it, and then we're off into Silent 7. Take it away, Matt.
Sounds good, Mark. So, this video, well, you know what, doesn't really need too much preface, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a play.
My name is Dr. Amy Velazquez, and today I'll be teaching you how to do some exercises and stretches that will help you if you have carpal tunnel syndrome. Let's get started. So the first exercise I'll be teaching you guys is for mobility, and it's called the Flexor release. And what you need for this exercise is a table and a lacrosse ball. What you'll be doing is that you'll be placing the lacrosse ball on the table and putting the underside of your forearm directly on the ball. You'll be scanning back and forth to see if there's any tender areas. And once you do find something that's tender, you want to apply constant pressure or do little micro circles until that area starts to dissipate in terms of intensity and pain. You don't want to do this exercise for more than 1 minute just to avoid any soreness or bruising that may occur. So for the second exercise, I'll be going over another mobility.
Okay, so I would like to pause for just a minute here. And what we've transitioned from the last video to this video, all of the things in the last video were active movements that involved stretching or strengthening. They all involved a range of motion. They all involved action. Some of them involved a little bit of assisted stretching. What we're getting here, this first thing that's been demonstrated here, is another whole realm of therapeutics, which is body work, tissue manipulations with either hands or objects. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is we're adding a bullet to our arsenal of what we can do for carpal tunnel and forearm conditions. Some might ask, my problem's in my wrist down here, dude. What do I got to do anything in my forearm for? The reason is all of these muscles of your forearm create the tension that you feel in the tendons and ligaments within your wrists. Remember, muscles have contractile ability. They attach to tendons which don't have contractile ability to transfer the force they create. Okay, a muscle pulls on a rope like a tendon, like a man pulls on a rope. Okay, and though the irritation might be at the pulley where that tendon crosses, the tension still comes from beyond that tendon or rope. All right, let's see what the next one she has to say. And yes, that's just simple ball rolling. And if a lacrosse ball is too much, try a tennis ball. If a lacrosse ball isn't enough, try a golf ball, right? You progress through from something softer, less intense, to something more intensive as your tissues gain integrity. Two things happen. Tissues gain integrity and the nervous system loses sensitivity. And that's how you get to a place of feeling better.
The activity, and this is called the anterior pathway stretch. To start off with the exercise, you would need to rest your palm against the wall with your fingers pointing behind you. Once your palm is resting against the wall, you also need to make sure that your elbow is locked out so the whole entire arm is straight. Once you're there, you need to take a couple of steps forward until you feel a nice and comfortable stretch along the length of your entire forearm. If you feel a stretch along your chest, that's okay too. If for some reason you're feeling numbness and tingling while doing the stretch, we have a couple of modifications. You can either step back a couple of steps, just so that it will ease the tension along your arm. If that doesn't help, you can also try repositioning your arm. You can either move your arms a little bit higher.
So those of you that watched the class and saw us doing the chest stretch earlier, the difference is the chest stretch, you bend the elbow to get the wrist and forearm out of the stretch so you can focus the stretch to the chest, right? When you put your hand on the wall and you lock your elbow, that focuses most of the energy into the forearm. And just as much as stepping forward, you can also rotate into it, much like you would a chest stretch, but you're going to increase the intensity in the forearm. So that's really just a nice little look into, like, all of these things we do are of a family, and minor changes make something a different stretch. It's important to know, because when you're trying to do something specific, you need to be specific. It's also important to know because a lot of times you think you're doing things great, but you're doing them wrong. So, double-edged sword there.
Or a little bit lower if necessary. If these modifications do not help the numbness and tingling, you need to discontinue this stretch. So for this last exercise I'll be going over, it's for strengthening purposes, and it's called the Extensors Activation. So for this exercise, you would need a resistance band, a chair, and a table. As you're sitting down on the chair, make sure that your forearm is resting against the top of the table. You would need to use the resistance band to secure it along the bottom of your foot and also wrap it around your fist. Now, in terms of the start and stop position, you need to position your wrist so that it is bent all the way down so that your fist is pointing towards your toes. That is your start and stop position. In order to strengthen up the top side of your forearm muscles, you would then proceed to pull your wrist up so that it's pointing towards the ceiling. Once you're there, hold it for 2 deep breaths in and out, and slowly control your fist back into the start position.
Yes. So that's a great exercise, actually. That's not one I've used in the past, so I give her kudos and originality on that one. That is an active making the muscles strong. When you make muscles do work, they get stronger. That band provides resistance. She's lifting the knuckles back up toward the back of the forearm. She's going to turn her hand over and do the other side as well, doing a wrist curl, right? It's probably going to do both of those exercises. If you don't have a TheraBand at home, you can do that by creating resistance with your own hand, right? You can do this with your own hand. You can get on a wall and push away from the wall this way. Same thing, pushing away from the wall that way. You could hold a heavy ball and lift it up, or a dumbbell and do wrist curls in either direction. Lots of opportunities, but you just need a little bit of resistance and a place where you can comfortably do that full range of motion for strengthening. So this was an excellent video. I give it, an A+ for a short, hit the mark quick kind of video. Again, put yourself into it. It's about your intention and your will and your consistency in actually doing the work. All right? And with that, I'm going to knock off on this and go hang out for about 7 minutes. This next section of the class we call Silence 7. I use the inversion table. Folks at home, you can be setting up somewhere, like you'll probably see Tiffany with her legs up on the sofa, right? Finding a nice, comfortable position to just let everything go. And basically, the only requirements of this part of our show are to find a quiet space and breathe for 7 minutes. 7 minutes of 3 counts in, 6 counts out. 3 counts can be 3 seconds. 3 counts can be 30 seconds, depending on your ability to control your own breath. Challenge yourself. How long a breath can I take in and still double it on the exhale, right? The secret to a long exhale is intention. Take that breath in and let it out really slowly. A little bit at a time as opposed to all at once, right? That's how you make a long exhale breath. With that, I'm going to come over here to my trusty inversion table, say goodbye to y'all. I'm going to listen for those first 3 gongs that put me into that special place in my head where I can let it go for just a little bit. Thank you all for coming. If you find this helpful, come back again and tell your friends. And with that, it's over and out time. Hope I can get out of this because I just realized it's set up for Tiffany and not me. Take it away, Matt.
like to thank everybody for coming to the show today. Help by Ground Up Therapeutic Care. Mark, do you have any final thoughts on the show?
No, man, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming, and I hope they come back and share with their friends who might benefit. We don't fit every taste, but for those who need us, sometimes there are no other options. So send them on in.